we are going to review this for next 45 to 50 minutes. And today, 11th December and 12th December, tomorrow. So these are the two dates left for COP28 Dubai conference. So basically yesterday on 10th December, I think everyone was seized of this issue about fossil fuels. Even though there are several tracks of negotiations which are going on, I think this was a predominant subject which was on everyone's mind about fossil fuels and various deliberations on that and opinions shared by different people and of course the leaders of different nations. So civil society was also very preoccupied with this fossil fuel debate. So the demand is for fossil fuel phase out. And if you remember on COP26 in Glasgow, there was this language of phase down. I think that kind of ambiguity is now overcome, and now everyone is pushing for fossil fuel phase out, all kinds of fossil fuels. So that was the prime subject yesterday. So a lot of civil society action was there pushing for that. So the second aspect I think is polluters pay. So the polluters who have contributed to the growing burden of carbon in the Earth's atmosphere, I think they are being asked to pay. So I think this is the second principle which is coming up, especially with the fossil fuel phase out, the gathering steam. People are talking of just transition. Just is basically the transition which has to be more, equity, based on equity and principles of natural justice, and also amelioration, basically responding to the most vulnerable countries, vulnerable communities, and vulnerable, species in the natural world. So the polluter space principle is also being emphasized upon. Yesterday, as I reported yesterday in the morning, the COP28 presidency has called for a majlis. Majlis is a Arab Urdu word where people gather together, and President Al Jaber, he organized this majlis, and he said the objective of majlis is to foster heart-to-heart discussion. So this was the initiative taken up by the presidency, and it's basically a plenary where all the ministers are there and the heads of delegations were there, and he urged everyone to be flexible, thinking about common good rather than their self-interest. So coming from a person who heads an oil company and from a petro state, I think this was a very positively taken, this kind of a language. And he also urged delegates to come up with recommended language on the outstanding issues. So I think this is again a kind of neutral statement where he wants a outcome coming out of it, and he wanted that language which suits everyone's purpose and interest. So Adnan Amin, who is a COP28 CEO, he also spoke at Majlis, and he raised two questions: how to build. I'm highlighting this because they are very pertinent and very deep. How to build a transformative ambition and mitigation while addressing just and equitable transitions and corresponding support requirements. So this, gains importance given that fossil fuel phase out is being demanded, and there is a expectation that some decision will be taken in that context. So the this is that means all the economies, countries, they need to transform themselves. So, and this is as part of a mitigation measure. It's not adaptation measure. It is a mitigation measure. So when we are building this ambition, he says we need to address just and equitable transitions. So, and corresponding support requirements. I think here he is probably, appealing to the developed countries to provide possible support in technology transfer, finance, and and various other hand-holding requirements. And then he also raised the other question: how to credibly tackle the gap in adaptation finance and action. So these two, he says, are very important questions, and I think he probably reflects the mood there in COP28 by raising these questions. So these two have become very critical, and of course, loss and damage is still there on the agenda, and the civil society is also concerned about loss and damage. But ultimately, in terms of taking credible action, I think answers to these two questions raised by Adnan Amin, I think they are very important. So this Majlis, yesterday there was another meeting, heads of delegations meeting. So HOD meeting on global goal on adaptation. So this global goal on adaptation has become very important, and the Majlis. So yesterday these were there. So again these two were open to some observers and broadcasted online. So this meant, COP28 presidency has given more given to transparent methods of negotiation. So usually observers are not allowed when the ministers are meeting and heads of delegations are meeting. So yesterday, some observers are allowed. I don't know who are these some observers, but I think I meant to people who can, communicate what is happening outside, and that builds confidence on the, direction of the negotiations and subject of the discussions. And it was broadcasted online. I think that's very significant. I could not see that, but still the recording is available on the net on UNFCCC website. And then, importantly, global stock take. We know on the past 4 or 5 days we have been discussing this. Global stock take discussions, of course, were undercover, so it was not open to anyone. Only the delegates discussed that. So this is a photo of the Majlis. You can see how it was organized. Everyone seeing each other. It was a kind of round table. Now, I know a lot of speeches or interventions were made by several countries, but again, I could not find if India was there and whether Indian representative, whoever it might be, either the Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav or anyone has spoken, because we don't have any information on that. Maybe it's available, but I could not access that within the time available for me here. So I just picked up a few important interventions which are very critical and which, in fact, have set the tone of the sharing session. So Switzerland, it has reiterated a call for a strong energy package on fossil fuels and corresponding support for this commitment. So this, if you remember the energy package in Global Stock Take is a paragraph number 35, where A, B, C, D, E, F options are there, and within each A, B, C, D, E, F, there are option one, option two, and A contained a very significant option where world is being called to triple the renewable energy capacity and improve on energy efficiency from 2 to 4%. So Switzerland is reiterating this strong energy package, which may not be option one, but several options. So, but it still wants that energy package to be approved. EU, European Union, they have also supported for, cutting down fossil fuels. And but they flagged, EU representative flagged that this is still a challenge for both producers and consumers, and therefore a balance of measures is required to support the transition from fossil fuel to non-fossil fuel kind of economy. So again, it shows that there is a realization that it's not easy, and we need supportive measures. Without that, that call does not pass through. Germany also said that the only way to limit warming to 1.5 degrees is to peak global emissions by 2025. So Germany is saying we should, beyond 2025, we should not allow emissions to grow. That's a peak. And from there on, it says we need to reduce the carbon emissions there in the atmosphere by 60% by 2035. That means from 12 years from now, we have to reduce 60%. Again, even though for some it looks like a a period which is very long, and there are people who want everything to be happening tomorrow or day after because of the climate crisis. So fossil fuel phase out is the only way to save mankind. So this is a statement coming from a German minister who participated in the Majlis. Saudi Arabia, of course, it has been opposing fossil fuel phase out and the language which is used. And yesterday, it seems it raised consistent concerns about targeting specific sources of energy, that is fossil fuels. So it says, in fact, since Paris Agreement, the usual line is about emissions. So how come sources are being talked about is a question being raised by Saudi Arabia. But then I think with the climate crisis going up, emissions not coming down, in fact increasing, I think that's how COP28 has come to discuss sources rather than emissions. So Saudi Arabia is talking about scaling up all low emission technologies like carbon storage. So carbon storage mechanisms, basically technical fixes have to be scaled up is what Saudi Arabia is calling about. And it says, we need an outcome that takes into account our specific national circumstances. So Saudi Arabia appealed, basically saying we are a petro state. Our entire economy is dependent on petroleum, and how can you say we need to completely shut down that sources of our income? So it says we need to take account specific national circumstances. I think there is scope for that because the language and then the series of steps can be worked out where such dependency can be gradually decreased. I think there is scope, but now, but yesterday after Saudi Arabia spoke about it, now many felt it has a case. I mean, its argument was accepted. So there is again thinking on how to do fossil fuel phase out. I think that's a, principal question which COP28 is grappling since the past 3 4 days. So Iraq also opposes phase out or phase down and ending fossil fuel subsidies. It says we need to continue fossil fuel subsidies, and it brings again the national circumstances because Iraq has been fighting, ISIS, Islamic State, terrorists, and they said we have invested so much on fighting that, and by doing that, we have done a favor for the entire world because ISIS, could have spread to anywhere, and we, on behalf of the world, we fought ISIS, and we need that acknowledgement as well. Colombia, I know Colombia has been intervening very, effectively in the last 2 3 days, and the minister from Colombia, Susana Mohammed, she was very. I know Colombia has actually taken a decision to phase down its dependence on fossil fuels, and it says our experience shows that we did not get any support, and now we are suffering because of that decision. Even though she says we need to take that decision, she says, I think countries require support, and we need to have a new economic deal because, when you're tripling renewable energy, you require finance, and that finance, if it comes at a 30% interest rate, I think it's people are not going to opt for it. So 5% interest rate might be better, is what she's saying. So she's not is also not saying it should be a grant. It says it could be a loan, but at a lower interest rate, so that there will be incentive for shifting from fossil fuel to renewable energy. So she says here it's important to understand who has the power and where the power is there to take decisions. So obviously pointing out to rich, developed, and grossly polluting countries like Norway, US, UK, and Australia, and other countries. So the alliance of small island states, which includes Tuvalu, Tobago, Marshall Islands, these kind of states, very small states, they said we cannot leave COP28 without the highest ambition in the GST, and that the group would like to see phase out of fossil fuels and related subsidies. So they clearly are trying to put pressure for a very highest ambition in COP28. France also urged fossil fuel phase out, and again it also brought about using the finance package to address both mitigation and adaptation issues. Now, people, observers who were there, they said even though Majlis did not produce any concrete proposals or it did not lead to any compromises, but I think it indicated that there is a transparency there, and that transparency has been used strategically by COP28 president is being talked about. So some of the observers comment on the Majlis, on this plenary where ministers and observers and delegates, shared their viewpoints. So it says, I think it comes from Bolivia. The pressure is on the US, Canada, Norway, Australia, and the UK to commit themselves to phasing out of fossil fuels, or else it will condemn the planet to a death sentence. So if we are not taking decision now, I think Earth is moving towards a very serious crisis. Then there is one, journalist who said, "Where are the incentives to phase out fossil fuels?" I think this is what has been aided by different countries like Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Bolivia, and Colombia. So they are saying we need incentives to phase out fossil fuels. So and enabling conditions. So enabling conditions, finance, incentives are required for a fossil fuel phase out. Then there is one, journalist who has been covering from this COP negotiations. He says, in 8 years of attending climate talks, I have never felt so much like we are getting real about what matters. So it's kind of blowing my mind. It shows that she was very impressed with what is happening, and she thinks now real things are being discussed at COP, and her 8 year experience in participating in COPs, she felt this is the one which is discussing real. I think these words will be received very positively by President of COP28, Sultan Al Jaber, who has been under pressure because of his CEO position, and also his statements during COP28 about there is no science behind fossil fuel phase out, and some such statements. So I think he'll be very happy listening to this. So there was the same journalist, she said the Majlis, the Majlis itself, she says is a cultural tradition of Arab countries, and she says she recalls COP23 organized in Fiji, where they had this specific tradition of Talanova, kind of Majlis. So she says cultural traditions of the host country, they stretch the heart of these two technical talks. So she says these kind of cultural traditions, if they are woven into the COP processes, I think she says it can bring a heart into the very technical talks which usually happen in negotiations. Now, yesterday again, everyone was very, referring to the deal between the US and China, because now even for a decision to come out on the fossil fuel phase out, these two countries have become very, very important. So before COP28, these two countries had a meeting, and it's called a Sunnylands Agreement. And there they have arrived at a understanding on what to do. So here in the from that statement, we can see that what they agreed upon. They said to sufficiently accelerate renewable energy, we need to accelerate substitution for coal, oil, and gas generation. So whatever substitutes we need to find, they have to be accelerated if you want to accelerate renewable energy. And then a meaningful power sector emission reduction. So this thermal power production, or even fossil fuels used for energy production, I think that is being targeted. So that the entire energy sector emissions are being targeted, and these two countries felt that we need to work on this. But then, yesterday China, in Majlis, they spoke about it, and they want to stick to Sunnyland statement, whereas US wants to go beyond this statement. So both of them are not blocking any decision, but I think still there is, there is probably a holding back kind of situation on both the countries. So just for all of us to understand, because if you remember, the fossil fuel phase out package includes, a call for no new investments on fossil fuel production or exploration or any investment on fossil fuels. So here, there is a study. It says in the last 1 year. So in the past 1 year, how investments are growing in fossil fuels. So there are under construction, fossil fuel facilities. 207 are there. Then there are projects. 281 new projects have been announced on oil and gas plants, and there are pre-construction 295. So overall, 783 gigawatts of a new investment is coming for new 783 gigawatts in oil and gas. Coal also, we can see similar uh, 557 gigawatts is under construction 204. So this means, even though countries now are agreeing that we need fossil fuel phase out, but all these big countries have started investing on new projects of fossil fuels. So that is why the reason that word which was put in the package. So when someone looks at this, people are not hopeful that there will be a decision on that. No, yesterday it was Food, Agriculture and Water Day, and a lot of events have happened around that. So there is, now linkage which is being looked at seriously about climate change and the food systems. So not food, but food systems, how we grow food, how we process it, how we consume it. So these are the food systems we are talking about, not a natural food system. This is about the human food systems which are linked with climate change. So mobilization has been done. So $3.1 billion of funds have been raised yesterday. And if you remember, on December 2nd, there was a declaration, COP28 declaration on sustainable agriculture, resilient food systems, and climate action. So there are now more countries have signed. Now it is 152 countries who have signed this declaration. India has not signed this, if I remember correctly. Then we have more than 30 countries joining the freshwater challenge to protect and restore 30% of the planet degraded freshwater ecosystem. So the water again is a critical natural resource, and climate change is impacting it also, and water is also part of the climate change. So there is now a freshwater challenge, basically a grouping of countries, and they are working on how to restore freshwater ecosystem like lakes, tanks, or even rivers or even streams. So all those need to be restored because they have been degraded in the past several years. So food and agriculture is one of the 11 declarations with broad country support. Now I think now I remember. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. India has most probably signed this declaration. I'll check and come back to you tomorrow, because I remember they have not signed a declaration on climate and health, and they have not signed a declaration on tripling renewable energy systems. But this, I think, I don't think we have information whether India has signed this or not. But what it means, I think, as I mentioned briefly on December 2nd, even though this talks about resilience and resilient food systems, I think most of the ideas which have been included there want to continue what is happening with the industrialized agriculture and developed country agriculture systems. So this declaration is not going to topple any emission reduction, but probably it will only continue the big and huge mega systems which have been built in developed countries. So that's where I think I have objection to a lot of the provisions in this COP28 declaration on sustainable agriculture. Now, again, yesterday it was the International Human Rights Day, and there are people who link it with climate crisis is a human rights crisis as well. So a lot of people are losing their right to a proper environment, a right to livelihood, right to clean water, right to energy, right to earth as basically land. So a lot of these human rights are under threat because of climate crisis and before climate crisis as well. So this is again yesterday I believe there are some activities which have been organized around this. Now coming to national negotiation tracks, we have 14 new texts released yesterday by maybe 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. So new texts, that means some changes have been done in those texts. If you remember, even yesterday the same set of new texts were released day before. So we could report the same number yesterday. But within that, yesterday I reported that only one reached draft decisions. But now we can see that on 10th December evening, 5 new texts have reached draft decisions. Now this will go to COP presidency, and in the plenary they might be approved or they might be taken up for final approval. And among the 14, 9 are still a draft negotiation text. That means they are still at a basic level. It has to pass through several negotiation levels. And overall, there are 109 draft negotiating texts out of 338 entries. That means many negotiation tracks are still at a very basic level. There are no 2 days are there, and but still not much progress has been reported. There are 45 draft conclusions. Yesterday it was 47, I think, but now it is 45. So how did it calm down is, I think, again, I need to check. But 22 clean text. So clean text is basically which possibly goes to draft conclusions or decisions. So 22 clean texts are there, and then 33 draft decisions. So that means out of this 33, 22 are clean without any brackets. So other 11 might have some words in the brackets which need to be again discussed in the plenary or as the COP presidency decides what to do about it. So they might again ask for informal negotiations so that those brackets or underlining all those things can be removed and a clean text will go to final approval. So now, Al Jaber has declared since yesterday that he plans to close the summit at 11 o'clock on 12th December, 11 a.m. on 12th December. That means tomorrow by 11 a.m. in Dubai, he's planning to close it. But will it happen is what we need to see. So because there is a lot of circumspection about this planning, because many key agenda items have not yet completed. There is no text at all in some areas. Now we are talking of draft negotiating text being still there, but in some areas there is no text, so they could not come together with a text at all also. So eight agenda items, I don't have any draft text. 30 items, including big ones like stock take, global goal, and adaptation, they are not yet agreed upon. And but in 30 other areas, there is some, they are coming to some closer decision making. So only five have agreed so far, and many items have been postponed to COP29. So again, I think it shows that a lot of wrangling or slugfest is going on within those items. So heads of delegation. One positive thing is heads of delegation considered revised text on global goal on adaptation, and several groups that even this text requires a lot of work to be done, but they agree this can be the basis for negotiations. But today, the Hindu reported that they have come up with a agreement on adaptation. But it does not give us details. But I found that there is nothing agreed upon adaptation. So, but that was a headline, top page news by the Hindu today. So this was again done by Carbon Brief. So they, according to them, there are 57 tracks which are still in a procedural negotiation level. 21 have been postponed to COP29. There is no text in 8, not agreed 30, nearly agreed 30, and only 5 have been agreed upon. This again their compilation of different tracks. So you can see each on loss and damage, Santiago network, Warsaw implementation mechanism. So this is also global stock take not agreed. There is still informal text going around. So each track, they try to give us information on where is the negotiation and what stage it is. So this the table is actually reporting what is here. So this, of course, I've been trying to show you every day, because just to repeat the the different stages this negotiation tracks are going upon. Now this is a picture which visual information where how they are conducting informal consultations. So this is on Warsaw implementation mechanism, international mechanism for loss and damage. And these are informal consultations where some of the delegates are standing together and trying to discuss, areas of, disagreement and agreement. So as usual, I collected a few, different views. So Mary Robinson, she is from Ireland. I think she was ex-president or someone. In fact, Mary Robinson organized a webinar, and I think on December 2nd. And in that webinar, COP28 president said there is no science behind fossil fuel phase out. So she subsequently came to COP28, and she says it is important that people are not left out when this happens. This means fossil fuel phase out. So that means fossil fuel phase out should not leave out all the people who will be impacted by this. I think it is a significant statement because in India, whether India is playing any role or not, but a fossil fuel decision, phase out decision can impact Indian economy, and several vulnerable groups can be left out of that transition process. So I think we need India to discuss, Indian Parliament to get seized of this matter. Now that lady Susana Mohammed, Colombian minister, she said we have to align the economic and financial systems for the transition. So she is saying this on the basis of her experience with the decision to phase down coal dependency of Colombia. So she wants mechanisms in the UNFCCC, whatever are there now are not the right ones. Costs of capital are too high to triple renewables. So she wants that to be reduced so that there will be incentive for transition towards a non-fossil fuel based economy. So someone again, Asad the Razak, he compiled some good news, and he says in the last this week, 100 plus countries have backed fossil fuel phase out, and Canada also has decided to cut oil and gas emissions by 38%. Dubai has also taken a decision to cut emissions 50% by 2030. Now, how they do that, how they cut emissions, I think still they may take a decision as part of their national policies. And $225 million to protect the 30% of Pacific Ocean has been committed. And from India, very positive news is 50,000 new electric buses will be procured by India by 2027 in an arrangement with the US. So they are saying payment security mechanism where funds will be provided by US, and these new buses will probably encourage more public transport in India on a fuel which is non-polluting and which is not a point pollution. So Germany coal usage has come down by 47.3% in the third quarter of 2023 when they compared with the third quarter of 2022 last year. So that is again a very significant reduction in coal by Germany. So it also means it is possible. It's not that we cannot phase out fossil fuels. So German experience. In fact, German minister said we have been doing this, and you come to us, learn from us how we can phase out fossil fuels. So Germany looks like one example. Colombia looks like one example. So both on the different spectrums of economy, developed economy and developing economy. I think there is already experience where which can be evaluated and learned from. There was this delegations, we have been reporting on delegations. So one Jen Allen, she pointed out, she noted that in the delegation participants, there were 54 spouses or friends of, because, Western countries, they don't know if they are married or not. So delegates came along with their 54 spouses. Then 603 cameramen or camera persons as part of delegates. Then there was one DJ, disco jockey. Again, it looked very funny how a DJ has become part of the delegation. Then 63 escorts. Escorts, is not a Korean kind of escorts, which long back, 100 years back, between Japan and Korea, there was this issue where women were considered as escorts. This is about security escort. So security people, like we have seen in Indian delegation, SPG was there in Glasgow summit. So they are also listed as part of our delegation. Graphic designers were there, teachers were there, and two gardeners were also. She could collect information about. Tidbits, this is again an important thing. COP29 will be organized in 2024 and it will be hosted by Azerbaijan. And they are given the dates also 11th November to 22nd November. So we are now in December 2023. It is a little below 1 year. We are going to have COP24 in COP29 in 2024, hosted by Azerbaijan. And yesterday, someone pointed out that John Kerry, who is a US climate representative, he was not there in the Majlis for the whole of the afternoon. And also, Chinese representative was also absent. So it seems both of them have been discussing among themselves somewhere else. So people are saying that okay, two big countries are negotiating among themselves, and they hope something positive will come out of those negotiations. So I'll show the finally, this is about as Al Jaber said, he wants to close the COP28 tomorrow 11 a.m. But Carbon Brief has given us this graph where uh, all the COPs, right from COP1 in Berlin to COP27 last Egypt, most of them exceeded their time. So some exceeded by 24 hours, some by 12 hours. So maximum, second, the extension was maximum in the case of, I think, Madrid, COP25. The second the longest extension was in Sharm el Sheikh. So people think it will be extended beyond tomorrow, 12th December. So this is again interesting point of graph which gives us information on how COPs are ending at whether they are ending within the time frame or beyond that. So today there will be 28 events scheduled. You can see the number of events have come down as focus is more on negotiation at COP28. Now this is a below you can see UNFCCC is giving us information on so far 285 press conferences have been held, 152 climate action events were held, 366 side events, and 195 exhibits. So this is the dashboard of events on the at COP28. So I'll stop here and then you know talk briefly in Telugu and we can end today's review. నిన్న మనకు 10 డిసెంబర్ నాడు COP28 దుబాయ్లో సదస్సులో జరిగిన కార్యకలాపాల గురించి మనం సమీక్ష చేసుకుంటున్నాం. ఈ సమీక్ష చూస్తే అంటే నిన్న COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఒక మజ్లీస్ అని అంటే ఒక దర్బార్ లాగా సమావేశం ఏర్పాటు చేసి అందరినీ అంటే ఈ ప్రతినిధులను వాళ్ళ యొక్క పై అధికారులను మంత్రులను అందరినీ కూడా సమావేశపరిచి ఇచ్చిపుచ్చుకునే ధోరణి పెంచుకోండి, మనం ఒక అసాధారణ నిర్ణయం వైపు మనం ఆలోచించాలి. ఎందుకంటే ఈ పుడమి మీద మనం చూస్తున్న ఉత్పాతాలు కానీ పుడమి ఎదుర్కొంటున్న సమస్య తగ్గించాలంటే మనం నిర్ణయం చాలా ముఖ్యమని మాట్లాడి ఈ సమావేశం ఏర్పాటు చేసి అందరూ తమ అభిప్రాయాలు పంచుకునే ఒక వేదిక నిన్న మజ్లిస్ అని ఏర్పాటు చేయడం జరిగింది. ఈ మజ్లిస్‌లో ఎక్కువగా ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను ఉపయోగాన్ని తగ్గించడం లేదా క్రమంగా పూర్తిగా ఎత్తివేసే దిశగా నిర్ణయం మీద చర్చలు జరిగినాయి. అభిప్రాయాలు పంచుకోవడం జరిగింది. అనేక దేశాలు దీన్ని ఒప్పుకుంటున్నారు. అంటే శిలాజ ఇంధనాల ను ఉత్పత్తి చేయడము, దాన్ని భూమి నుంచి వెలికి తీయడము, దాన్ని ప్రాసెసింగ్ చేయడము, దాన్ని ఉపయోగించడము. ఈ అన్ని అంటే మొత్తం మొదటి నుంచి చివరి దాకా వీటిని ఉపయోగించే ప్రక్రియలన్నీ తగ్గించేయాలని అనుకుంటున్నారు. ఇప్పటికే గ్లోబల్ స్టాక్ టేక్ ప్రతిపాదనలో ఇది ఉంది. ఈ తగ్గింపు తో పాటు పునరుత్పాదక శక్తి నుంచి, వనరుల నుంచి ఎనర్జీ తీసుకోవడం మూడింతలు పెంచాలని కూడా. అదిగాక కొత్త పెట్టుబడులు ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధనాల మీద అస్సలు పెట్టకూడదు అని ఇప్పటికే ఈ గత సంవత్సరంలోనే దాదాపు అన్ని దేశాలు కూడా ఈ పెట్టుబడులు పెట్టిన పరిస్థితి చూస్తున్నాం. అది యుఎస్ కావచ్చు, భారత్ కావచ్చు, చైనా కావచ్చు, అన్ని పెద్ద దేశాలు ఒకవైపు ఈ సమస్య ఉందని ఒప్పుకుంటూనే ఇంకోవైపు పెట్టుబడులను కొత్త పెట్టుబడులు పెడుతున్నారు. సో ఇది కూడా తగ్గించాలని వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడడం జరిగింది. తర్వాత ఈ ఆ మజ్లిస్‌లో కొలంబియా దేశము చాలా ఇప్పటికే 2, 3 రోజుల నుంచి కొలంబియా దేశం యొక్క అభిప్రాయము చెప్పడం గాని, సందేశం గాని చాలా బాగా అనిపించింది చాలా మందికి. ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఈ కొలంబియా దేశము నిన్న మజ్లిస్‌లో తమ అనుభవం చెప్తూ మనము శిలాజ ఇంధనాలను తగ్గించాలి. అది వాస్తవమే. మనం కూడా చేయాలి. మేము చేశాము. కానీ చేసినాక మా అనుభవం బాగా లేదు. ఎందుకంటే మేము పునరుత్పాదక ఇంధన వనరుల వైపు వెళ్ళాలంటే మాకు పెట్టుబడి దొరకలేదు. పెట్టుబడి సేకరించిన దాని మీద వడ్డీ 30-40% ఉంది. ఇట్లాంటి పరిస్థితి ఉంటే ఎవరు కూడా శిలాజ ఇంధనాల వ్యవస్థ నుంచి మళ్ళడానికి సిద్ధపడరు. మా అనుభవం నుంచి అయినా మనం ఇక్కడ ఈ నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంటే దీంతో పాటు అదనంగా ఈ పెట్టుబడి ఎట్లొస్తుంది, తర్వాత ఈ మార్పుకి ఏదైతే పరివర్తనకు మార్పుకి కావాల్సిన సపోర్ట్ కానీ ఇవన్నీ కూడా వాటి గురించి కూడా మనము నిర్ణయాలు తీసుకోవాలని కొలంబియా చెప్పడం జరిగింది. ఇంకా అనేక దేశాలు కూడా దాని గురించి మాట్లాడినాయి. అంటే జస్ట్ ట్రాన్సిషన్ అని కూడా మాట్లాడుతున్నాం. అంటే దీనివల్ల ఒక ఈక్విటీ బేస్డ్ అంటే సమానంగా, సరి సమానంగా ఎవరికి నష్టం కాకుండా న్యాయంగా ఎట్లా చేస్తాము, ఆ మార్పు ఎట్లా తీసుకొస్తాము అనేది కూడా చాలా ముఖ్యమని చెప్పారు. యూరోపియన్ యూనియన్లో జర్మనీ దేశం కూడా వాళ్ళు ఇప్పటికే మార్చుకున్నారు. గత సంవత్సరానికి ఇప్పుడు లెక్క చూస్తే పోయిన సంవత్సరము ఈ క్వార్టర్ అంటే మనకు ఇది జూలై, ఆగస్ట్, సెప్టెంబర్, అక్టోబర్ ప్రాంతంలో బొగ్గు మీద ఆధారపడి ఉత్పత్తి దాదాపు 47% తగ్గించారు. అంటే పోయిన సంవత్సరం ఇదే 3 నెలలకు ఈ సంవత్సరం 3 నెలలకు పోల్చి చూస్తే 47% జర్మనీ తగ్గించింది. అంటే జర్మనీ ఏమో చెప్తుందంటే ఇది సాధ్యము, అసాధ్యం కాదు. శిలాజ ఇంధన వ్యవస్థ నుంచి మనం మార్పు చేసుకోవచ్చు. మా అనుభవం నుంచి నేర్చుకోండి. మా దగ్గర రండి. మేము కూడా సలహాలు ఇస్తాం. మేము కూడా దానికి తగిన మద్దతు ఇస్తాము అని వాళ్ళు చెప్పడం జరిగింది. కాకపోతే ఇప్పటికే అనేక దేశాల్లో సందేహాలు ఉన్నాయి. అందులో ఇప్పుడు ఏదైతే క్రూడ్ పెట్రోలియం మీద ఆధారపడిన దేశాలు సౌదీ అరేబియా కానీ ఇట్లాంటి దేశాలు ఆందోళన చెందుతున్నాయి. ఎందుకంటే వాళ్ళ ఆ, ఆర్థిక రంగం కానీ వాళ్ళ అభివృద్ధి కానీ పూర్తిగా ఈ దీన్ని లాభాల నుంచి వచ్చిందే కాబట్టి మరి ఇప్పటికిప్పుడు అది మానేస్తే మా పరిస్థితి ఏంది అని వాళ్ళు ఆ, ఆందోళన ఆ, వ్యక్తం చేయడం జరిగింది. మరి అప్పుడు వాళ్ళకి ఎట్లాంటి ఇన్సెంటివ్ ఇస్తారు అట్లాంటి దేశాలకు? మరి అవి ధనిక దేశాలే, కానీ ఆ ధనిక ఒక రిచ్ స్టేట్ నుంచి పూర్ స్టేట్ కి వెళ్ళాల్సి వస్తుంది మేము ఈ ఇంధన వ్యవస్థ మార్పు చేసుకుంటే అని వాళ్ళు వాళ్ళ బాధ వ్యక్తం చేస్తున్నారు. సో వీళ్ళకి ఎట్లాంటి ప్యాకేజ్ ఉండాలి అనేది కూడా ఆ, ఆ, స్పష్టంగా వాళ్ళు రైజ్ చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. ఇవన్నీ ఇట్లా చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి. అయితే ఈ మనం COP27 28 రేపు 11 కల్లా పూర్తి మూసేస్తామంటే సదస్సు ముగుస్తుంది అని COP28 ప్రెసిడెంట్ ప్రకటన చేయడం జరిగింది. కానీ ఇప్పటికే దాదాపు కేవలం 5 అంశాల మీదనే ఒక ఆ, అంగీకారానికి వచ్చారు. ఇంకా దాదాపు 300 అంశాల మీద అసలు ప్రాథమిక స్థాయి ఏకాభిప్రాయం కూడా లేదు. మరి ఆ పరిస్థితులలో రేపు మధ్యాహ్నం కల్లా ఒక ఫలితం వస్తుంది అనేది ఎవరు అనుకోవట్లేదు. ఇది బహుశా మిగతా కాపుల లాగా, ఎందుకంటే అన్ని కాపులు చూస్తే పోయిన ఈజిప్ట్ లో జరిగిన కాపు ఆ, ప్రకటించిన దానికంటే ఒక 2 రోజులు ఎక్కువైంది. అంతకుముందు గ్లాస్గో కూడా ఆ, గ్లాస్గో కంటే కూడా మాడ్రిడ్ లో జరిగింది ఇంకా ఎక్కువ రోజులు పోయింది, దాదాపు 3 రోజులు సమావేశం ఎక్స్టెండ్ అయింది. సో ఇది ఈ COP28 సమావేశం రేపు 11 లోపు ముగుస్తుందా లేదా అనేది ఉంది. అయితే నిన్న జరిగిన మజ్లిస్ మీటింగ్ వల్ల ఇవాళ జరగబోయే సమావేశంలో బహుశా తొందరగా వాళ్ళు ఒక ప్యాకేజ్ కానీ ఒక అంగీకారానికి ఒప్పందానికి వస్తారని ఆశిస్తున్నారు. ఆ ఆశ మేరకు ఆ, ఫలితం మంచిగా ఉంటుంది అని ఒక ఉత్కంఠ అయితే అక్కడ COP28 సదస్సులో పాల్గొంటున్న వారు అనుకుంటున్నారు. అయితే ఆ, ఇక్కడ భారతదేశం ఏమనుకుంటుంది? మరి భారతదేశం మీద ఇప్పుడు ఈ శిలాజ ఇంధన వ్యవస్థ నుంచి మార్పు ఆ, ఆ, ఒక ఒప్పందం వస్తే, అంతర్జాతీయ ఒప్పందం వస్తే అది మన దేశంలో మన ఆర్థిక రంగం మీద రాజకీయ నిర్ణయాల మీద ఎట్లా ఉంటుంది అనేది మన ముందున్న ప్రశ్న. అంటే మనం అందరం భారతీయులము ఈ ప్రశ్న మన ముందు వేసుకొని ఆలోచించాల్సిన సమయం ఉంది. ఎందుకంటే రేపు పొద్దున ఉదాహరణకి ఒక 10 ఏళ్ల కాలంలో మనం ఇప్పుడు ఫ్రాన్స్ కానీ జర్మనీ కానీ యూరోపియన్ యూనియన్ వాళ్ళు ఇప్పటికే నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంది 2030 వరకు, అంటే వచ్చే ఏడేళ్లలో వాళ్ళ దగ్గర పెట్రోల్ డీజిల్ మీద ఏ ఒక్క వాహనము నడవదని వాళ్ళు నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంది. మరి మనము అట్లాంటి నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంటే మనం అంతర్గతంగా ఎట్లాంటి విధానాలు వస్తాయి, దీనివల్ల ఏ రంగం మీద ఏ వర్గం మీద ఎవరి మీద ఎట్లాంటి ప్రభావం ఉంటుంది? అంటే మనం ఒక పూర్తిగా ట్రాన్సిషన్ అనే పదం ఏంటంటే అది మొత్తం సంపూర్ణంగా మనము ఆలోచించాల్సిన అవసరము కనపడుతుంది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు అక్కడ COP28 సదస్సులో కానీ ఇక్కడ మళ్ళా మన మీడియా కానీ మన రాజకీయ వ్యవస్థ కానీ అధికారులు కానీ ఎవరు కూడా దాని గురించి పెదవి విప్పలేరు, ఏమీ మాట్లాడట్లేదు. మరి రేపు పొద్దున రేపు కానీ ఎల్లుండి కానీ ఒక నిర్ణయం ఒక ఒప్పందం వస్తే ఆ ఒప్పందం కూడా చెప్తారా? దాని గురించి అసలు ఏమన్నా విశ్లేషణ ఉంటుందా, ఆలోచన ఉంటుందా? మరి పార్లమెంట్లో ఇది ఎందుకు చర్చించరు? పార్లమెంట్ ఇప్పుడు సమావేశాలు జరుగుతున్నాయి, పార్లమెంట్లో ఇది చర్చించవచ్చు కదా. మనం ఆ శిలాజ ఇంధన వ్యవస్థ నుంచి మారితే మా మన మీద పడబోయే భారం ఏంది, దాని ఫలితాలు ఏంది, మరి మనం ఈ మార్పుని ఏ విధంగా మనము తీసుకొద్దాము? దీని ద్వారా సమానత్వము, సహజ న్యాయము, కనీస ఇది మన సామాజిక న్యాయము ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఎట్లా ఉంటాయనేది ఆలోచించాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. కానీ న్యూస్ పేపర్‌లో లేదు. మీడియాలో లేదు. ఏ మీడియాలో లేదు. రాజకీయ నాయకుల్లో లేదు. ఎవరిలో కనీస స్పృహ కూడా కనపడట్లేదు. సో, మనమన్నా దీని మీద ఆలోచించాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. ప్రజలు దీని గురించి ఇప్పటికే మొదలు పెడితే బాగుంటుంది. మనం ఎట్లా మార్పు తీసుకొస్తామనేది మన ముందున్న పెద్ద ప్రశ్న. సో, ఇవాళటికి ఇది ముగిస్తున్నాను. రేపు మళ్ళీ 11 డిసెంబర్ నాడు జరిగిన ఆహ్, కార్యకలాపాల గురించి సమీక్ష రేపు పొద్దున 9 గంటలకు చేస్తాము. ధన్యవాదాలు.